So what up, gamers? You know who it is. This is just one of those random commentaries. I just have a lot on my mind at the moment, and I figured I'd share some of that with you guys. In my opinion, right now is probably the best time that I can remember to be a gamer. And it's kind of funny because I was talking to my teacher last night after my final exam, and he's a big gamer too. He was a big Halo gamer, and now he's on the PlayStation 4 and he plays a lot of Battlefield, and he's actually on my friends list, but I don't get a chance to game with him often. But he was telling me a story about how he actually got arrested for playing video games. Long story short, he broke into an arcade and made it so where he could play unlimited games, and he left his tools, and his tools had his name on it, and when he was about 12 years old, and the cops actually caught up with him. And believe it or not, it really was on his permanent record. When he was in the military, he got asked about that, and so it's actually a very, very funny story, and it just reminded me that there's nothing wrong with gaming. There's nothing wrong with who's a gamer, and he's been very successful in his career, and he's got a very successful livelihood, and he teaches on the side, and I look up to him in that respect, and it's really cool. It's just cool to know that gaming has impacted a lot of people, and I'm one of them. A lot of us didn't grow up with a whole lot of money, and some of us, as opposed to running around in the streets and doing things that we know we weren't supposed to do, we grabbed the controls and we had a good time. I personally, I was a jock my whole life. I was playing basketball, playing sports, and I didn't really care too much about overachieving in school, but I did what I could. I got really good grades, and I stayed playing. It was two things. It was basketball and video games. That was what I considered fun for me at the time, especially when you're broke, when you don't have the money to buy a car and take all the pretty girls on dates when you're a young kid in high school. I did have a lot of fun on that. Maybe we'll talk more about that later, but this is really a great time to be a gamer. When I was a kid, I had to rely on my parents to get me a console, and I had Nintendo, and then we eventually had Sega Genesis, and we used to go back and forth. We played Super Nintendo, and then we played Sega Genesis, and I can still remember the Genesis does commercials and whatnot. And, man, that was one hell of a console war. And I think there's even a movie coming out about it, Nintendo versus Sega. And it was an awesome time. But I had both consoles. I didn't really care. Whatever game is good on either console, I'll be able to play it because I was a true gamer. And eventually I got old enough to where I joined the military, and I had a Dreamcast, and the Dreamcast wasn't popping enough, and then I eventually got a PlayStation 2. And at that time I was so excited about my PlayStation 2, and then the Xbox was coming out. And all my friends was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get an Xbox because they got this game called Halo, and it's gonna be so much better than the PlayStation 2." And I didn't think nothing of it. Eventually, my roommate, when I was in the Air Force, he got an Xbox. And so we had both consoles. We had a PlayStation 2. We played the majority of our sports games on that console. And then he got an Xbox, and we played the fighting games, and I think we played we played the majority of the shooters on that console. And we used to host tournaments, and the majority of the tournaments were Madden tournaments and NBA Live tournaments and things like that. It was kind of fun. We used to play $10 a head, and whoever won would walk out with $50 to $100, and then we would go clubbing. So we had a real fun time in that time frame. And eventually, when I got out of the military, I just had a PlayStation 2. I didn't have the money to go out and buy an Xbox, and right before the PlayStation 2 era ended, I went out and bought an Xbox. And I played Halo 2. I think I just bought the Xbox just to play Halo 2 and try to get good at it. And it was mainly because I was surrounded by people that knew how to play that game, and they were always challenging me. And either way, I got that console, and I felt like, wow, this is a great time to be a gamer. I've got two consoles. after the military and when I was out doing my own thing, I was working a lot of odd jobs. I was doing business for myself, and when you're in your early 20s, you're applying what you learned in your teens, and you're allowed to make a lot of mistakes during that time frame. I think in my early 20s, if I would have had a mentor or somebody to guide me, I wouldn't have made as many mistakes as I did financially. And you know, at the time, I was trying to start a business. I was in the real estate business, and I was following the money and all this kind of stuff, and I couldn't justify owning a PlayStation 3. My wife got me an Xbox 360 for Christmas of 2007, and I couldn't afford a PlayStation 3. It was $600, you know, and I didn't feel like I was ever gonna buy any Blu-ray discs, so I felt like it wasn't something that I could justify buying. And during that time frame, I didn't hate on the PlayStation 3. I had one of my best friends. He had an Xbox 360, and he also had a PlayStation 3, and he kept telling me, save your money and get a tray. That was his favorite thing to say. My buddy Joffrey, you know, aka Blastar7, shout out to him. And you know, he tried to get me to get the PlayStation. I just didn't have the money. And over time, you know, literally 5 years went by, and then 6 years went by, and I never got the PlayStation 3 in time to experience all those great games. You know, I didn't get a chance to experience, you know, the Naughty Dog series, Uncharted, and God of War, and you know, I missed out on all these great games that were exclusive to the PlayStation because I settled with the exclusive games that were on the Xbox 360. And I justified my Xbox 360 because I said it has party chat, so that's the reason why I'm staying here. And it was to me, it was a good justification. I had a great time. I played Halo 3 and Gears, and you know, I played Halo 4 and Halo Reach, and those games didn't do as well as Halo 3 did, but in my opinion, those games had a lot to offer, so much more to offer in an FPS game than most FPS games out there. You know, they had customization and all kinds of match types, and it was just an overall fun game. You could play, you know, 6v6, just guns and ammo, and then you could play in big maps with vehicles and things like that. So I had a great time, and you know, I missed out on a lot of things on the PlayStation 3, and I vowed that that would never happen again. Eventually, we got news on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and I decided that I was not going to be an early adopter of the Xbox One. I said in various different videos that Microsoft's approach to the gaming community was completely backwards, and that they were doing things that weren't gamer-centric. They were more media-centric, and they were more trying to, like they called it, the water cooler. They wanted the Xbox One to be everything all in one and not necessarily gamer focused, and they wanted to kind of advertise all these other options, and that's why they gave you TV and football and all this other stuff that they were adding into the approach to that console. Regardless of how you felt, if it worked out for you, my brother, he's a big fan of football, and so am I, but he is more so than me, and he decided that the Xbox One would be the better console for him. But even my brother, you know, his life had taken, you know, he had some other responsibilities, some other liabilities that he had to take care of, and buying a console at $500 was just something he couldn't justify at this moment in time. And me personally, I just felt like I wouldn't get an Xbox One until they made some changes, and until 2 games came out. 2 games that I really wanted to get: Halo 5 and Titanfall. And recently I found out some information about Titanfall that didn't necessarily appeal to me as a first-person shooter fan. And I expressed those concerns to you guys, and then I went out and found 3 of the most respected people in the community. I got Fear Moho, Fisticuffs, and my buddy Jive Turkey, and we had a commentary where I allowed them to basically answer my questions, some of my concerns. And I still plan on asking other pillars in the community to help me discuss that question, because I'm representing the gamer that didn't buy, that wasn't an early adopter of the Xbox One. And I was hoping that maybe I could answer some questions, or maybe those guys could answer some questions for those people that are on the fence, that are strongly considering getting an Xbox One to play Titanfall. And some of you guys are thinking,
why don't you just get it on the PC?
If I get it on the PC, I would still have to spend a certain amount of money, or a good amount of money. And knowing me, I'm a techie, so I'm gonna go all out. I'm gonna spend a good couple $1,000s in order to get, you know, the best specs and the best hardware ever. I decided that I would probably not go the PC route right away. I have a Mac, and if Titanfall ends up on the Mac and on the OS eventually, then I will just play it on my Mac. I currently don't have any space. I don't have anywhere that I could put a PC. I mean, of course I would have to run an HDMI cable into my TV, but I'm not exactly sure what I'd be doing with that in order to make that work. But at the end of the day, I felt like the Xbox One would be the better choice in order for me to connect with some of my subscribers. But I just didn't want to do it anytime soon. I figured I'd wait till Halo 5, and I thought Halo was coming out at the end of this year. Come to find out that it's not coming out this year. It's probably not coming out until next year. And hopefully at E3 we'll find out some more information. And so right now the big game on Xbox One is Titanfall. And I didn't want to be a one-sided commentator. You know, I'm the only commentator of my size that I'm aware of that is at the moment only owning, you know, one console. And I figured one of these days I'll end up getting the Xbox One. And I have a buddy right now who's trying to get me a console. Not sure if he's going to get it to me anytime soon. I don't know. He said he can get it to me for a really ridiculously low price. Free. But we'll see what happens. But I think, again, that this is a great time to be a gamer, because you get a chance to experiment and, you know, try a lot of different things. And I think that, you know, if you have the money and you are a true gamer, you should play all the games, or you should try out as many things as you can. And I'm trying to be that person. You know, I have a career that I'm shooting after, and I'm a full-time student. I have a family to take care of, and, you know, I have a lot of responsibilities. And so at my expense, I try my best to help you guys make a quality decision. You know, making a quality decision on whether or not to get an Xbox One or get a PlayStation 4, and whether or not to play Titanfall or to play NBA 2K, or whether or not you should buy NBA Live. I have NBA Live 14 in my collection. It's a very, very bad game. You know, probably the worst. I consider it, due to the time frame that it's in, the worst sports game of all time. But that game is a classic. It's the biggest troll project I've ever seen in my life, and I consider it a classic for all the wrong reasons. So I bought that game so I can share with you guys why you shouldn't buy that game. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but this is what I do as a gaming content creator on YouTube. And so finally, I think that you guys all should make the decision, you know, based on what you've seen and what you know, and based on your finances. You know, if you're like me, when I was in my 20s, when I didn't have the money and I couldn't afford both consoles, be secure with what you got. If you're an Xbox fan, who cares? That's great. The Xbox One has a lot to offer, and if what it has to offer fits your needs and it fits what you were looking for as a gamer slash you know, media type person, maybe you're someone that likes to watch a lot of TV and flip through between games, that's a great option for you. If you're someone who's more casual and you like what the Xbox has to offer, that's great. If you're more of a hardcore gamer and you really want the best quality, the best bang for your buck, and you want free games on a regular basis, the PlayStation 4 is the best console available. And you know, they have a lot of exclusives on the way, and I think that console can fit a true gamer's needs. So I hope this commentary made some sense to you guys. I know I revealed a little bit more about my personal life. I normally don't do too much of that. As always, let me know what you think in the comments. It's your boy Shake. I'll holler at you dudes later.